pleasure is pussy. Let's talk about that. So what does that even mean? So as a trans woman, I don't have a vagina, all right? And that can change, but I currently do not have what is medically considered a vagina. Though I call, in a sexual setting, my ass my pussy, because it's like, that's my pussy. And you know, when he's on top and I'm like, oh, daddy, like, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'll be like, oh, daddy, like, it feels so good in my pussy. It really feels like a good pussy. And he's like, oh yeah, baby. And I'm like, yeah, this is so hot. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling you this. But like, so this is pleasurable. So this is what I figured out. This is how you make it pleasurable in a way that it feels like it's a pussy. And I'll just kind of say it like that, because I will never know what it's like to have a cis vagina, but at some point I will know what it's like to have a vagina. So there's kind of two routes to this. The first route is to use a vibrator. If you do not like playing with your parts, the other route is actually to use a chastity device. Or, you know, if you're so disconnected with your parts, you can just ignore this advice and kind of just be like, well, this is all I got, and I ignore it, and I ignore the feeling, and I don't want to engage with it. But I mean, like, here's the thing. In order to make it feel more like a pussy, you have to increase your pleasure experience. The way that your brain and your subconscious engage with this part of your body, which is your anal cavity, and it's used to, and your anus, it's used to being only used and stimulated for pooping. So that's kind of this first hump you encounter is, wait a second, you need to teach the body to not feel like it's thinking that it's pooping, right? And this is where you play and you stimulate and you start to train your body to become used to this as a pleasurable thing. I think I just got something in my eye, so just 1 second. So to kind of like get this pleasure experience, you need to start teaching your body to feel pleasure, to experience pleasure, and to tell it and to tell your subconscious, this is a pleasurable experience. Learn to build your connections, brain, to this being a pleasurable experience. No, you're not trying to poop. No, like, this isn't you're on the toilet. This is something where I want you, and I'm talking to the brain and the body, to experience this as pleasurable. And so this is why I want to introduce the vibrator or the chastity device. So we'll start with the vibrator, because that's kind of the most accessible and easier thing to do. If you can play with your parts. The vibrator, and you can touch many different areas, and I wasn't actually planning on doing this, so let me just zip up my pants a little bit. Oh my gosh, look at this. This kind of looks phallic, like this is a back massager. So when I'm using the vibrator, I'll use it right here on my clit, and this is pretty pleasurable for me. And so while I'm receiving the sex, I'll be pleasuring myself in a way that will keep me erect. And why that's important is because there's a line between, in your anus all the way around, there's a, let's see here, yeah. In your anus, or down from between your anus and to the front, there is a, there's kind of like this tube, which is kind of like it's attached to the penis, and it can be very pleasurable. And so when you keep that enlarged and engaged, it'll create a sense of pleasure that happens in your body and happens down inside your anal cavity. Now, this is not vanilla masturbation, and I think this is kind of a key in your mentality as you approach and experience this. You're gonna need to learn to actually focus the pleasure not on where you're stimulating, but allowing that stimulation to create a sensation in your erectness to go down into your anal cavity and actually focus the pleasure there. And so when you're feeling that pleasure, you can start to actually feel like the sex that you're having it actually starts to feel like a vagina because you're engaging with your clit, I call it a clit, in a way that creates a connection with this pleasure. I don't have really good words to describe this, but like basically, you gotta kind of like go like this, and then you kind of, you can stimulate yourself there, and then you're having a great time. What the hell is this video? We're going very acrobatic on this one. So that was kind of a big eye-opener for me, because as I was having sex with my boyfriend, it felt so pleasurable and so right that I was like, oh my God, it feels like a pussy right now. It really does. And it feels like you can get me off. And I actually, after getting used to doing this, I actually came from anal sex without stimulating directly my clitoris, but stimulating that space in between and really focusing on the pleasure. And that is like game changing for me, because it transformed my sex from a place of, oh my God, like, I'm feeling this is a lot, to, wow, this is like pleasurable. Just kind of like how I see cis women with vaginas and how they feel like sex. It's no longer try to be present, try to be relaxed, try to manage the pain. Do you ever get that kind of sense when you're having anal sex, that you're trying to manage sometimes the pain or the discomfort? And this completely flipped the experience. The chastity aspect is another way of achieving this, and it's a little different, because instead what you're doing is you put the chastity on, and I mean, first of all, chastity can be like super kinky and hot, and like the power dynamics and all that, very into that. But for me, it didn't work so well due to medical reasons. I have like an epididymitis down there, and so it's a little painful. But I have experienced this enough to tell you, you can kind of shut off the pleasure region down there. And by doing that, you start to condition your brain and your body to look for other ways of receiving pleasure. And that's when it increases your receptivity to the pleasure that you can experience receiving. And I think that's a very hot and beautiful way to expand your pleasure center, by receiving anally. And if you're, what is it called that's inside the anal cavity that men can get cancer with? I'm forgetting the word, but when you take estrogen, basically this thing shrinks, and it means that your pleasure experience kind of shrinks as well. But I think you can still orgasm from anal if you just stick to a strict diet of chastity. It really depends on how estrogen affects your body. I definitely find it hard to experience anal pleasure without turning myself on through the vibrator path. So yeah, so that's kind of pleasure as pussy, and let me know in the comments below. This is a bit of a tricky video. We did a lot here. I hope you enjoyed it. And by the way, please join my community. My Discord community link is down below if you want to partake in the trans community. And check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me. I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.